All right, so we're using all Zildjian. Um, First, we've got the A custom 13-inch hi-hat top with a 13-inch A quick beat bottom. We've always preferred smaller, lighter hi-hats because, in my experience, especially like, growing up playing guitar in a band, like the hi-hats are always just, you know, really obnoxious and just overly loud and they bleed into every mic and it's just not necessary. So we we like a really like high pitched kind of almost like a white noise kind of really really light sound, when they're open, and then of course when you know there's going to be plenty of definition, with these small hi-hats. But our philosophy has always been we like smaller, thinner, um, more quiet cymbals. I because the thing is when you play like metal or like rock, it's like it's almost just kind of instinctual where you want really big, thick, heavy cymbals that are super loud. And you see those that kind of marketing where it's just like, cut through the fucking mix, those walls of guitars. And it's like, yeah, but the reason why those guitar players are so loud is because the drums are so loud. The drums determine the volume of everything else. So it's always been our philosophy to have like more controlled, like smaller, lighter cymbals that explode and then disappear, so they don't like overwhelm the room. You know, because you look at it like this: like when you record in a studio, like everything is mic'd. Everything's gonna be like perfectly mixed in the end. It doesn't really matter if it's too loud or if it's too quiet or like whatever. And then when you play live, you've got mics and everything. You've got overheads typically, you know, and if you have just a basic competent sound engineer, then he's gonna mix that shit to where it all sounds good, you know? But you know, the vast majority of the time we spend playing is in, a rehearsal space, in a garage, in a bedroom, you know what I mean? Like in like places where you don't have mics and you don't have PAs and stuff. So I've always like, I've always believed that if the cymbals are like nice and tight and quiet and they don't ring out forever and all that, it allows everybody else in the band to bring down their volume, because like, yeah, super hella loud cranked guitars sound great, but any guitar player will tell you, when you start having these like volume wars within the band and you keep having to bring everything up, it's like eventually your speakers start to break up, that it just this it the it just sounds like shit overall, the louder you go, typically. So what we like to do is kind of self-mix, because the bass drums are triggered, we have absolute control over how loud they are. So like basically the snare and then your loudest cymbals determine, the overall volume. So that's why we like the 13-inch hi-hats because they're very smooth. They're very they fit. They just sit well in the mix, and they're not aggressive and they're not overwhelming, but they are, you know, they've got plenty of definition and all that when you need it. Okay. Then on our left here, we've got this is an 11-inch Oriental China Trash Splash, or I think they're just calling it a like a trash splash now, because Oriental, it's not cool anymore. But for many years, these were Orientals, whatever. I still call them that. We've had many splashes on this side, over the years, but we've pretty much settled on this one because it's got a really nice kind of, I don't know, trashy China-like sound. And we really like those kind of voices, right? And our left crash is a Zildjian A custom 18-inch fast crash. So this is kind of like the biggest change, because I used to use very small crashes. Like I think I had a 16 thin crash here, and then a 17 A custom over here. And um, so the thing is with these, with the 18s, they're larger, so they have like a fuller sound, but because they're fast, so fast crashes are um, They're thinner. They have a like a slightly different profile than other similar crashes. So they like explode and then disappear. They don't ring. They don't build up. There's so we really like that. So we went from like a 16, yeah, 16 thin and a 17 A custom to an 18 A custom fast and a K custom 18 fast. Did I say 70? All right, 18, both 18s. But you strike it and then it disappears almost immediately, you know? So we really like that. Definitely the best pair of crashes I've ever used. All right, and then next here we've got a 10-inch A custom EFX splash. Very, very thin, very trashy. Then we've got a 7-inch, they're calling this a brake bell. This is the custom shop, or I'm sorry, the concept shop, the prototype, but it's Jay Weinberg from Slipknot, like his or ex Slipknot, you know. Um, so it's kind of a weird looking bell. It's but and we've never used a bell before. We've always put like a mini China right here or whatever. But yeah, so we got this the custom or I'm sorry, the concept shop version, the prototype, and it feels great. I think it sounds great. So yeah, we're gonna see if we can incorporate that into our playing and see what we can do with it. If we don't like it, you know, we'll get rid of it. All right. Next, we have a K Custom Special Dry 10-inch splash here, which you know, this thing looks like it's been through the fucker. This thing looks like, you know, I found it at a junkyard or whatever, but it's supposed to be that way. It's super dark, super dry. Yeah, we really like that. And another big change we made to the configuration of our kit is we've always had a splash here. What we used to do is take a splash and put it on a cymbal stacker on top of our left crash, and then another one on top of our right, kind of like this. See how this mini china is stacked on top of that? Well, we used to put splash here, splash there, and then like a mini china in the middle. But we stopped doing that. It's just um, I don't know. I don't know why it took me so long to move to this configuration where they're all in a line in front instead of being on top of these crashes. It was just something I'd always done. So it's, yeah, so we really love this configuration, you know, splash, bell, splash. And of course the 18-inch K Custom Fast Crash I already talked about here. Right side. And then our ride. So we are using a K Custom uh, hybrid ride, 20-inch, which is kind of I don't know. It's different than what I've been using for the last 20 years, which was the Zildjian A Earth Ride, which was very pingy, almost no wash, all stick definition. But this, okay, has see how it has a brilliant finish here, a very large bell, and then it's like traditional here. And I don't know, we were looking for something a little bit more versatile, but still a lot of that stick definition when we need it, you know. So yeah, we're really happy with this ride. 20-inch K Custom hybrid. And then the China. So we've got a Zildjian 19-inch ultra hammered China here. Super fucking loud. And these things, you know, they don't really sound right unless they're in the context of the music. But you know a great China sound when you hear it. To us, like we think this sounds a lot like the China's from or the China that Lars used on And Justice for All. So we really love that sound. Uh, Again, you know, it's probably gonna sound like shit over this mic, but whatever. And again, we always this is a lot bigger than what we're used to. You know, we used to use like a 16-inch, or actually we were using yeah no a 16-inch A China Boy High, and then a 14-inch K Mini China. So yeah, 19 is very definitely the largest China we've ever used, but this just sounds great. Um, and yeah, it's definitely thicker and louder. This is probably the loudest cymbal we have. But Yeah, sounds great in the mix. Doesn't sound so great on its own. But yeah, and then stacked on top of that with a little quick release here, um, we've got a 12-inch Oriental China trash. So really, really explosive and high pitch. So that's great for like explosive accents and stuff like that. So yeah, we really like that a lot. Um, yeah, one more thing. So this quick release we have because this thing will just fucking uh, swing to no end because it's so small. And you'll notice here we don't have wing nuts or any simple toppers or any kind of stupid shit like that. We've long since evolved past those. We're using no nuts, you know, so no wing nuts, and we're using sim pads, which are nice foam washers instead of felts. We've done away with all the felts, so setting up is just as easy as that. Okay, and then the thickness of the washers determines how much swing you get. So with splashes, you don't want a whole lot of swing. So with the crashes, you want more swing, that kind of thing. But yeah, the only thing we have to use an actual quick release topper is this little China because it's so explosive. Um, and you don't want that to swing too much. Anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much our setup. It took us a long time to get here, but yeah, we're really happy with all these voices.